Could a very anticipated home and home series, non-conference series for West Virginia be next? Let's talk about that right after this word from my channel sponsor.
Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident, are fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com.
What is up? Welcome in to Couz's Corner. I'm your host, Couz. Here we serve up top shelf college football content. If that's what you like, this is a place for you. We cover the West Virginia Mountaineers, the Big 12, and conference realignment. On tap in today's episode, we're talking about Neal Brown and comments he made in a recent press conference about the Mountaineers' future football schedule, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on that, okay? But at his recent Monday press conference, they asked Neal about scheduling Pitt. Right now, West Virginia is in year 3 of a 4-year agreement with Pitt. They played at Pitt in 22. They played in Morgantown last year. They play at Pitt again this year, Morgantown next year. And then there's a 3-year hiatus. 26, 27, and 28, West Virginia and Pitt don't play, and then they pick the series back up again in 2029. Well, Neal Brown, basically alluded to the fact that he would like to continue that series, and if possible, even try to figure out, and kind of alluded to the fact schedule for 26, 27, and 28. And the way he said it was, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, we're working on getting our schedule fixed. When a reporter asked him to elaborate, he basically said, and again, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, right now we have Alabama. That ain't fixed. Now, what he's referring to is that West Virginia has Alabama, a home and home series with Alabama on the schedule for 26 and 27. They're supposed to go, Alabama's supposed to come to Morgantown in 2026, and then the West Virginia's supposed to go to Alabama in 2027. So apparently Neal Brown does not want to play that home and home series with Alabama. Now there's positives and negatives of that. The first thing, let's talk about the negatives first. And then I'll give you my opinion. But the negatives are this. To me, that's almost like Neal Brown admitting that West Virginia doesn't need to be playing Alabama, and they probably will lose the game. I mean, that's because the way he said it, go back and listen to his press conference. He said, we got Alabama. That ain't fixed. I mean, he was serious. I mean, he said it a little sarcastically, but, and when Ren Baker has hinted in the future that some SEC games might be taken off the schedule, they've dropped hints over time, but that Coach Brown this time was specific in mentioning Alabama. First time that's happened, really, that I know of anyway. I've talked about it on my show before that I think that's what they're gearing up for, but I was kind of surprised to see Coach Brown come out and say it. So that's a little bit of a negative to me that he's admitting that West Virginia probably can't compete. Now, is he right? Probably so. I do think he's right. And as a fan, though, I was excited about that series, man. Alabama, it's Ala-freaking-Bama. Now, it's less exciting now that Nick Saban's not there. I get that. But it's still Alabama. It's one of maybe the all-time greatest program in college football. It's a chance for West Virginia to play on a national stage. It would be great for recruiting. Similar to what we saw at the Penn State game. And look, West Virginia played Alabama under the Holgorsen era one year at a neutral site, and they played pretty well. They competed. It was a close game for most of it. And that wasn't even one of Dan Holgorsen's best West Virginia teams that year. I don't remember the exact year it was. I think it was maybe 2017, maybe, or 2016, something like that. I think it was 2017. But anyway, I digress. I'm wrong. It was 2015 because it was Clint Trickett. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Clint Trickett was a quarterback. It may have been 2015. But anyway, you guys get the point. It would be an exciting game. It would be exciting for the fan base. It's a new team that's not typically on the schedule. Again, it's a huge blue blood program. It would bring millions of viewers probably. But Coach Brown's wanting to replace that game with Pitt. Now, here's a look at the positives. Number one, Pitt, it's a regional game. it's a rivalry game, which the fans can get excited about. Maybe in some cases, maybe even more so than playing Alabama. So, and let's face it, Pitt is more on West Virginia's level. Pitt and West Virginia are pretty even when it comes to resources. They're, one's in the ACC, one's in the Big 12. They're on a level playing field for the most part. West Virginia's not on a level playing field with Alabama, and I acknowledge that. But man, it's exciting to play those teams. But Neal Brown is tired of going 0-1 to start the season, I guess, and he doesn't want to do that again playing Alabama. He's tired of opening the season with Power 5 teams, especially on the road, and one of those will be on the road. But again, the positives to that, you get to play Pitt potentially. But here's the challenge to that. Number one, how do you cancel a game? Because if you cancel it, you might have to pay Alabama $2 million to do it, or at least they might could negotiate it, but you'd probably have to pay them something. Now, there's a chance Alabama may want to cancel it too because they might add an extra SEC game to their schedule. Now, I looked at Alabama's schedule for 2026, 2027, and Alabama could drop West Virginia for an extra conference game, but they already have another Power 4 team on their schedule in Florida State. Would they really want to play two Power 4 teams plus their SEC schedule? I wouldn't think so. Especially if it's a 9-game SEC schedule. So it would make sense to drop West Virginia. Probably don't want to drop Florida State because that's going to bring massive TV. That's going to be a massive TV draw. I don't think the networks would appreciate that. So it makes sense to drop West Virginia in 27. The year West Virginia is supposed to go to Alabama. Alabama is supposed to go to Ohio State. Now and play. Now you see the networks letting them drop that game off the schedule? I don't think so. Now, there's still one more game for them to fill on that schedule, so it might be tough to drop the West Virginia game in that case. Who are they going to replace them with? What they could potentially do is if they add that extra conference game, they could drop West Virginia and then maybe go out and find a G5 team or maybe even an FCS school to play to replace them. With Ohio State on your schedule, your strength of schedule is going to be just fine, especially if you're playing in the SEC. So that would make sense. And also, let's face it, too, in the 2020s, back to the 2026 one, Bama may not want to have to travel to Morgantown. Especially if they had to add an extra SEC game that could end up being on the road too. So there are some things that the way it could line up, Alabama could potentially want to cancel that game too. So maybe there would not be that $2 million penalty or buyout or whatever you want to call it. Now, but could Pitt realistically add West Virginia to their schedule? Well, let's look at it. In 2026, Pitt does have room for one game on their schedule. Right now, the ACC, it's my understanding, now somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but they play 8 conference games right now. And each team typically plays 4 non-conference games. Well, right now, Pitt only has 3 non-conference games on their schedule plus the 8 conference games. So they could add West Virginia, no problem, potentially, if they could get the dates right. But here's the thing. Pitt already has UCF and Wisconsin on their schedule for that year. Would they really want to play 3 power teams not in non-conference play plus their 8-game ACC schedule? Pitt's not going to want to do that either, I wouldn't think. And then in 27, Pitt actually has room to add 2 games on their schedule. So again, they could add West Virginia, but again, they play Wisconsin that year in Ireland. The networks aren't going to want to drop that game. Those Ireland games, they make those a big deal. I don't see them dropping it. And then they also play UConn, who's not Power 5, but nonetheless, that game's on their schedule. At least they're not. They could be by then. Who knows? But anyway, again, would they really want Wisconsin, a Big Ten team who's typically pretty good? Would they want to play Wisconsin and West Virginia both, plus their 8-game or what could be then a 9-game ACC schedule? I don't know. But apparently West Virginia is trying to figure that out because Neal Brown said, we're trying to work on getting it fixed. We're working on it. Now, Pitt just fired their athletic director. That could delay this thing. That could really throw a wrench into their plans or into their – and remember, Gordon Gee, West Virginia's president, and Pitt's AD head alike used to work together. I think, if I remember correctly, Gordon Gee may have even hired her at one time at one of his previous stops. But nonetheless, she's at least worked for him. So I'm sure that relationship helped. So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. If West Virginia and Pitt are able to get their schedules filled out and get the 26, 27, 28 games on the schedule, and West Virginia could replace Alabama with them. And then in 28, West Virginia is supposed to play Tennessee at a neutral site game in Charlotte. Right now, that's the only non-conference game they have on the schedule. Again, Coach Brown's wanting to get away from playing 2 Power 5s out of conference. So are they going to try to drop that game too? Or do you just leave 2028 there? Maybe you leave Pitt off the schedule for 1 year at least, and then go back to playing in them in 29. It's better than having them off for 3, right? I have mixed feelings on it. I understand the reason they're doing it. I am tired of being one of the only Power 4 teams to have all these Power 4 non-conference games. It puts West Virginia in a disadvantage. But at the same time, man, look at the hype we had for this Penn State game. There would be similar hype probably for Alabama, if not more, especially if Alabama is still really good. I don't know. I was kind of looking forward to watching West Virginia play Alabama again. But at the same time, it's also cool to have the backyard brawl on the schedule every single year. So I'm kind of torn on it. I see both sides of the coin. At the end of the day, though, I want what's best for the program. And if Coach Brown and Rim Baker, they feel it's best for the program not to play all these Power 5 schools, especially the ones in the SEC or even the Big Ten, then by all means, don't do it. Because at the end of the day, I want to see West Virginia football succeed. And if taking those teams off the schedule will help them succeed and playing the backyard brawl is beneficial, then by all means, do what you got to do. But I want to hear what you think. Let me know your thoughts about this. Do you think dropping Alabama and adding Pitt would be a good idea for the Mountaineers, or would you rather see them keep Alabama on the schedule and just pick the backyard brawl up again in 29 like they originally planned to do? I want to know. Want to give a shout out right now to my VIP channel members of this episode: Bob Swanger, Eric Flowers, Big Aaron, and Browns and Beers. Thank you all for being VIP members. You can be a VIP member today. All you have to do is hit the join button below or do it over at my channel homepage. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. It all helps. Don't forget to go to my description box. Check out all the other ways you can support my work financially. If you want to buy merch, if you want to buy something from Fanatics using my link, you can go to my website, couzescorner.com. There are articles over there you can check out. All that. It's all in the description box. Or you can just make one-time donations through Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, all that stuff. And by the way, if you use those, none of it has – if you pay me through YouTube, which is all cool, YouTube gets a percentage. If you pay me through Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App, it all comes to me if you want to support what I'm doing here. Nonetheless, if you can't do any of that, that's cool too. I appreciate you watching my show. I appreciate your support. Don't forget to watch the video over here in the corner of your screen if you want more content. Have a top shelf rest of your day, and cue Country Roads.